Welcome back to Morning Express. It's now 22 minutes to 8 o'clock, and we're still on the way. It is, in case you're joining us now, a quick reintroduction of the guests that we have in studio, Dr. Ojwang and Mr. Mark Bichachi. Now, before we took the break, we were looking at the handshake between Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta and what possibly that means politically speaking. But the other question that now remains in the minds of many is the opposition. Raila, of course, has been seen as a leader of opposition for a long time and a good leader of opposition, because you need a strong opposition for any country to be on toes, and he has done that perfectly. Mark, your thoughts on where that leaves now the opposition?
First, let's look at the picture of this so-called opposition. The three other core principles were opportunists. Okay, they were waiting for Raila Odinga's career to die so that they could inherit his clout, and therefore their feeling of betrayal is founded on the fact that these were children sitting at the hospital waiting room, awaiting the doctor to come and say, your father has died, congratulations, you're now millionaires. But suddenly the person walking out of the theater was the father himself.
Literally running out of theater.
Running out of theater. And suddenly the inheritance was gone. So that is one aspect within which the opposition is. Secondly, let's remember that even when Raila Odinga was prime minister, he was still the strongest opposition to his own government. Even when he was in NAC, he was still the strongest opposition to himself. When he was in KANU, he was still the strongest opposition. The fact of the matter is, you cannot change the character of a duck. If he walks like a duck, talks like a duck, I can bet you he will still be a duck. So I do not think this allegiance with Uhuru is fundamentally changing Raila Odinga. In fact, it is proof positive that the Raila Odinga we've always known, who has the ability to reinvent himself, the proverbial phoenix who we thought was dead in the ground, yet arises again. That is the proof. If you want proof that Raila is still alive and kicking, what he did on Friday is classical Raila. He's done it many times. He did it to Ford Kenya, he did it to KANU, he did it to the NAC government, he did it during the 2005 referendum, he did it in 2007, he did it in 2010 when he removed the parliamentary system and his constitution won, he did it in 2013, he has done it many times. This is classic Raila. Kenya should rest assured that Raila Odinga is here to stay.
All right, Dr. Ojwang, one of the things that, of course, the other principles, or the ones that now you've baptized headmasters, will suffer from for a long time, and this might even be the wrong time for them, is the fact that they didn't show up on the 30th, because that was an opportunity for them to show their allegiance and, you know, standing with Raila on his course. Do you think they're bound to recover from that? Again, given that politics seems to have no memory of things, and things can change overnight.
It will also be, again, Raila to reintroduce them. And that is how sorry their status is. That it is the same Raila, again being a big man, who again will reach and say, come my brother, you might not be perfect, but there's always a second chance. And they need that, because there's the explaining to do. And the best person to do it, who have permission from the NASA supporters, will be Raila. And so, as long as they will be contemplating today's meeting, should we call it a day? They will say, no, we need Raila. If people are to forgive us for not showing up in Uhuru Park, and now that he has gone to the same government, then we really need him twice. So he has, and this is what Raila does, even to Luos. When you think that you are going to have a free day, he runs ahead with the issues. And so you can remain there, but he has gone with the issues. And you have no choice but to follow him. So that in this case, if you are Mudavadi, if you are Wetangula, he has left you not just out broke, but down. And without an inheritance, your right to inheritance, your canon is gone. But also with a moral fapping wound. Where were you? And so anytime you say, Raila, this is betrayal, what are supporters telling you? But where were you? Therefore, you'll need the same Raila. What Raila only can fix, to fix you and prop you up and again reintroduce you as number 2, 3, and 4 as he's going along, as almost the pawns he has gathered in this fight. So you can't, I think their wisdom will be, this is the worst time. People are mad at us. This is the worst time to fight Raila.
All right. Mark, the dynasty of Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta, does this further cement it? Because that's one of the things that many had felt or thought in 2022. Now we don't have a Raila and we may not have Uhuru Kenyatta, or rather we don't have Uhuru Kenyatta and we may not have Raila. But this seems to now be changing that mindset.
You know, one of the key things that we must understand, that we as Kenyans choose our leaders. It's a democratic process. This is not the United Kingdom where the Queen has been Queen for 50 years and her son
will hand over her crown
yes.
to...
Whether the dynasty continues or not is not a question for Uhuru and Raila to answer. It is a question for Kenyans to answer. It is also a question for their progeny and generations after for them to answer. Let's compare. Oburu Odinga, Raila's elder brother, does not have the clout Raila had. And it is not true that Raila inherited from his father. Raila made himself. Let's not forget that his father chose Wamalwa Kijana. It is Raila's sprint from Ford Kenya that gave him the clout that he has today. So let's not tie Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, who, by the way, lost in Gatundu in 1997, lost the presidency in 2002, and assume they are not creatures of political might by their own stead, by their own strength.
It's not per se inherited.
Yes, and you know, it's not one of those situations. If you look at Uhuru Kenyatta and his ability to charm a crowd, it is not something that his position in the family gave him. It is a gift that he got from God. If you think it's easy, you just try standing before a crowd and see whether your pants will not be soiled, and that's the reality. So the dynasty question to me is irrelevant. The quality of leadership that they provide is relevant. That's what I mean. In other words, if Raila Odinga today was letting down the people of Kenya, let's kick him to the curb. But if his relevance is good for the country, let's keep him. Why are we losing good leadership? Let's not do this thing where we throw out the baby with the bathwater, because now the next thing you'll tell me is 20 years from now, my son can't sit here because now it's a political analyst dynasty.
Which is not the case to go.
Yes.
All right, and the other agenda that, of course, many Kenyans will be looking out to by this union is the question of unity. Dr. Ojwang, Kenya, many have said, is a divided nation, and of course, any political procedure, especially drawing to the elections, will divide people because they have different opinions. Right. But Kenya may have been divided more by virtue of the fact that it's on tribal lines, and this too, ideally, I think they had the biggest following, whether tribal, whether political, whichever way you look at it. So do you think this would be an opportunity for Kenya now to finally have our union cemented and become to leave us better than we were yesterday?
Yeah, nationhood. I think this is building bridges rather than walls. And anybody who understands Raila know that he's somebody who is easy and not vengeful, and then very easy to accept. And that is what we see. So there are bridges being built. But for my coping mechanism, I've always learned to lower my expectations, very low. So that I'm not going to be happy because I think Raila will not be there. I've found that is not in my hands. That is in his hands. And so if people thought they will be happy because the Uhuru and the Odinga will not be there in 2022, I'm inviting them to lower their expectations because that might not be the case. So for Kenya, for example, we can't bury our heads in the sand. There were pain. There were a lot of hurt and emotional trauma among Kenyans. And this is a big step that this nation, people can still talk. It will trickle down to even those two people who could not see eye to eye. There are marriages which are at the brink of breaking. There are divorces that will now have to be, they need to recommit and revow. If Raila shook the hand of Uhuru, my wife, come, let us live again. So it is real. It is real. We can't belittle that. But I hope that it could cement into a real talk of what is wrong with Kenya. I was hoping at some point that Raila will fizzle away. That was my hope. And that's why I've lowered my expectation that is not in my hands. And maybe what is good for the nation, even if my brother decide to drink my water and that helps the nation, I'm all for building the nation.
Let it be.
Let it be.
All right. Mark, in terms of this union now and the agendas, and there are all those things, especially after the August 8th elections that were very, very glaring. For instance, electoral reforms. I think many Kenyans would agree that there is a need for electoral reforms. And the fact that this was championed by Raila, could this be a possibility that this union now can help champion those things? Or are we likely to see more political alignments for personal gain?
The biggest mistake that could happen in this particular alignment is if we started doing what Kenya has always done, over-legislate issues, okay? What we need to look at as a country is on what assumptions, on what hopes, on what dreams, on what internal moral infrastructure does the nation of Kenya run. That's where the problem is. If you can deal with corruption, and not the corruption of money, but the corruption of our souls, the salvation that Kenya needs. Kenya needs a come to Jesus moment. We need to come to ourselves and say, you know what, tusamehe sisi ni wenye dhambi. We overlap all the time. When we go and vote, we want to steal for our friend. When we meet people on the street, we will litter our papers as we have a discussion. We will steal from each other. This is what we need to address. If you can deal with the morality of Kenya, the national ethos as it was called in that paper, then you will have solved every single problem we have complained about. You will have dealt with grand corruption. You would have dealt with the traffic corruption. You would have dealt with the infrastructure, because now a third of our budget, which has previously been unaccounted for, will be accounted for. What we need to address is our moral character as a nation. And therefore, the mistake should not be made that you can legislate morality. Correct. The fact of the matter is, if you see how a Kenyan behaves near a policeman and away from a policeman, you will realize that we do not have any internal governance. And that's what is the most relevant thing. We need to start talking about of what is our morality as a nation. You know, when you take a Kenyan and you land him in Japan, he suddenly learns how to cross a road at the zebra crossing. But when he's in Nairobi, he crosses anywhere and looks at you badly, and if she's pretty, she walks even slower. You know, this is the problem.
Dr. Ojwang, we need to wind up in a few minutes. Your advice to Kenyans and what possibly we should expect in the near future.
Like you're saying, come to Jesus moment. It's me in the need of prayer, not my brother, not my sister.
It's me.
It is me.
Oh Lord.
Oh, it's me and you, oh Lord.
I can see you guys went to church yesterday.
We did our church
on Saturday,
yes. But I agree with him again that even to follow laws is a moral choice. All right? For me to decide that I'm not going to steal because it's illegal to steal, I'm making a moral choice. For me to decide that I should cross road on the zebra crossing, it's a moral choice. And that is why then Kenya is good at producing documents. And we are over-legislating. But the internal hardware, which is the drive to be moral, to follow this law, should be what we should work on. And that is why I'm saying that the honest conversation should be, why is this constitution impotent? Why are we taking a lot of time circumventing and rendering it as an aesthetic thing without it wielding its power? It is because of our lack of internal morality. And if we did that, not lawyers, not producing other pretty documents again, that's what we have done. In fact, other countries have run with single-line constitutions. So that's why I'm saying, if we went to Bomas, I know what Kenyans will want to do. Produce a document, agenda, whatever. And then that's what I call another misstep in the unfortunate legal events in Kenya. This thing needs pastors more than lawyers to threaten people with hellfire. If you cross anyhow, you'll not enter paradise. Forget Canaan. And that could work better than telling somebody about these codes that they know I can bribe my way from a police station.
Yes. All right, your closing comments, Mark.
You know, one of the things that excites me about the next 5 years is when Uhuru Kenyatta exits from the presidency, he'll still be under 70. In fact, he'll still be a young man by political standards. And therefore, he has a stake in the future of this country. Every other past president was in his sunset years. We imagine them sitting in the morning, from morning to evening, sipping coffee and having conversations. But the reality is we see in Uhuru Kenyatta a president who's active in the future that he is creating today. And I'm pretty sure that he is invested in that. And the same for Raila Odinga. And therefore, my hope is, and I hope Kenyans can see this, that it is an opportunity for us to reimagine, re-engineer, and remoralize our nation. Let us not waste the opportunity on bickering as to who and what and co-principal and deputy principal. That's not the core case. Let us have 5 years to just discuss who we are, what we want, why we are passing silly laws that 70% of people in Kiambu should get jobs in Kiambu. Is this 1920? You understand? Are we living in a black apartheid? You know. So we need to have conversations that drive our nation forward, not just in terms of roads, but what is the infrastructure of our hearts? What are we made of? When I wake up in the morning after I make my prayer, am I a patriot, or am I driven by selfish ambition which drives me to corruption? That's the opportunity that Kenya has. And if we can grab this opportunity, then we will not be worried who rises to top office in 2022, because in 2022 we will be sure that Kenya will be number one.
Thank you very much, Mark Bichachi and Dr. Ojwang, for joining us this morning on The Way It Is. And well, that's where we're going to wind up this segment of the show and take a break. And as we do that, we're preparing to have Robin Toskin coming in with Sports Chat. And of course, one of the things we'd like to look at is the Vancouver Sevens, where our Sevens team is doing pretty well, and find out where we are and what basically we have ahead of us. So for now, we take a short break. We'll be right back with Sports Chat right here on Morning Express.
This is KTN News.